Good morning, Aaron. How are you?
Very well. How are you? Happy New Year.
2925-00.
We're waiting for Lisa.
Oh, yeah, they're beautiful. Even download the information. Really
I
nice.
don't know why those surfaces are so popular. I had one once and it lasted about 6 months with me.
He says he can hear everybody. Can we hear him? He's just asking, can you hear me? Hello, Director. No. Robert?
He's muted. He's muted. I'll tell him here.
Want me to tell him to unmute himself?
Yeah.
Does he know how to unmute himself? Hey, how are you?
Good morning.
Hello.
Morning.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming to today's meeting. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will note that all board members are here in attendance this morning. And Director Pilati, are you here on the phone?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, he's on the line. We're just checking his feed.
Hello?
Right, okay.
Hello?
I can hear him. He's low.
Hello,
Hello?
Tony, can you hear us? Okay, we
I
can't
can hear
him.
you.
He's very, very low. I can hear him faintly.
Here
That's
is
gonna
muted.
turn his speakers up on his end.
I think it's gotta be done on our end.
Hello?
Can you hear us?
I can hear you loud and clear. I have my speaker all the way up.
We've got you. It's got a little better. Okay. We'll be attending remotely. All right, I will move to approve the minutes from the December 8th, 2021 board meeting. If there's a second. Second. Any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. I will move to acknowledge the Secretary of State's Advisory Directive, Advisory 2022-01, Ohio Attorney General opinion that was released last week. Also the Directive 2021-21, instructions regarding the review, examination, and verification of petitions, proposing an initiated statute and act to control and regulate adult use cannabis. And finally, a Directive 2022-01-2021 annual expense report that we're required to submit to the SOS. There's a second. Second. Okay, any question or comment about these? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes
Point of
unanimously.
order, Mr. Chairman,
Please.
just want to acknowledge everybody who's present here today.
Oh, yes, I did. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. I will move to approve the preliminary approval of the ballot order for the May 3rd, 2022 primary election. If there's a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any question or comment? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Cleary, good morning. I will have you present to us, but I'll make a motion and then I'll ask for a second and then we'll have some discussion on your presentation, okay? I will move to acknowledge the post-election audit summaries that Mr. Cleary will be presenting for the September 14th, 2021 primary election, the November 2nd, 2021 general election, November 23rd, 2021 Maple Heights Council District 6 recall election. If there's a second. Second. Mr. Cleary, thank you.
Good morning. I'm Brian Cleary, Manager, Ballot Department. On December 14th, we conducted a risk post-election audit, September 14th primary election. The race that was randomly selected was Cleveland Ward 2 member of council. There were a total of 58,437 ballots cast in the September election. There were 2,145 ballots cast in the Ward 2 race. Of those, we hand counted 390, 5 unique batches. all batches and 100% match the official candidates. If there's any questions about September, I'll take them there. Now I will move on to the November general election. Beginning on December.
Excuse me one second, Mr. Clear. And Mr. Pilati, could you put your phone on mute, please? It's just there's some background noise. And Brian, I have a question, not without taking such a deep dive, but you said we hand counted, conducted 390 ballot casts in an audit contest. There's a science behind that,
There
right?
is.
Why don't you just, if you can give us a kind of a high school explanation for me anyways?
We do is we break all of our, we have 6 categories of types of ballots that we use: election day, absentee, election day, vote by mail, provisional, early in person, post vote by mail, post election day. And we take each of those categories and then we break those up by precinct. So for each one, I'll just use a round number of 975 for our countywide election. So each one of those 6 categories will get a batch number assigned to it. The batch number is weighted based on how many ballots are cast in that category. So obviously for election day, that's our highest turnout. That's going to get the greatest chance of being pulled when we randomly roll the dice to select them. Provisional, post-election day, those are going to be the smallest categories. They're going to have the smallest opportunity to be picked. And then what we do is we randomly roll those based on the preset numbers that we assign to them. So for this race, I believe it was 4 dice. So we have anywhere from 0 to 9,999. Each of the categories I just described was assigned one of those numbers. We roll 4 dice randomly, and then each batch is picked. And as you can see on page 2, those are the batches we picked for those, and some of them are vote by mail, some of them are election day. We did not pick any of the smaller categories. And then once we do that, we then use the hand counting procedure that we've always used to hand count each of those individual batches.
So we're taking a ballot and looking at what the votes are on that ballot.
Yeah. Once we determine what we're going to count, we pull all those ballots out, and a Democrat, Republican, a bipartisan team will actually physically look at the ballot, look at that race, and determine did they vote for candidate A, candidate B, was it an overvote or was it an undervote? Once they put those in those 4 categories, they'll then count each of those categories and see if it matches the official candidates. If it does,
For that particular
for that
precinct.
particular race, that's right.
But a very small precinct. Is it a precinct we're comparing?
It's a precinct, but it's a batch of precincts. We may only look at the election day of that precinct or the vote by mail of that precinct, the provisional of that precinct. The more batches you have for risk limiting audit, the greater opportunity you have to select batches that are going to affect the outcome of the race.
All right, thank you. And then I interrupted you. What's the next race?
I'm on to the November 2nd, beginning on December 13th. We conducted 3 risk limiting post-election audits for the November general election. The races we selected were for Rep to Congress, 11th District, the Cleveland Mayor, and then issue 24, which was the Cleveland Charter Amendment. There were a total of 232,149 ballots cast in the election. The hand count in the audit was conducted of 3,719, and all results matched the official canvas 100%. Any questions on the November general election? Hearing none. And then the final one, on December 14th, we conducted a risk limiting post-election audit for the November 23rd recall election. There was only one race in that, and that was the Maple Heights District 6 recall. There were a total of 222 ballots cast in that election. We hand counted all 222 based on our calculations. And once again, everything matched 100%.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Cleary? Thank you, Brian. All right, there's a motion on the floor, and there's a second. There are no further questions. All those in favor of acknowledging the post-election audits for those races that Brian just spoke to us about, vote aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. I will move to acknowledge the resignations from elected office of Kalen Serene from Cleveland Heights City Council, Tess Neff from the Lakewood City Council, Melanie Weltman from the Orange Board of Education, and Kelly Kosick from the Strongsville City Council. There's a second. Thank you. Any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I will acknowledge the intent to retire of Nikki Antonio from the Ohio State Senate, District 23. She's required to notify the board here of her intent, and I believe she'll be back on the ballot this November or in May primary. There's a second. Second. Thank you. Any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I will move to acknowledge the withdrawal of candidates from the May 3rd, 2022 primary election. State Central Committee, Daniel Langshaw, Michelle Smith from Cleveland Ward 1, Precinct O, Lavidia Murray from Cleveland Ward 6, Precinct G, and James Baker, Cleveland Ward 7, Precinct R. There's a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, again, getting ready for the May 3rd primary, I will move to approve the preliminary authorization for the allocation of voting booths for that May 3rd, 2022 primary election. Allocated quantities is based on social distancing and room size per polling location. A total of 4,613 voting booths will be allocated, plus 836 DC 200 precinct scanners and 295 ADA auto marking voting units and 1,131 electronic poll books. There's a second. Second. Thank you. Any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And on to acknowledgement. I will move to acknowledge the receipt of ward boundary legislation from Bay Village, Euclid, Parma, and Parma Heights. If there's a second. Second. Question, Mr. Gallagher. We're just acknowledging, but we're not implementing new boundaries for these jurisdictions?
Yes, because of, we have candidates filing for precinct committee people. The Secretary of State's office does not allow us to make any changes to the precinct boundaries after January 1st. So therefore, the precinct boundaries are locked in. So we did receive notices from these municipalities that had requested changes in their precinct boundaries, but we sent them written notice, verbal and written notification that the changes won't be conducted until after the May 2nd election. And they were all understood.
And the cities, the mayors and the presidents of council understand that's the case.
Yes.
Okay. And did we just take, we have a motion and a second. We take a vote on that?
I don't think so.
Okay. Although, any other questions for Mr. Gallagher? Hearing none, all those in favor signify
I
by
had a
saying.
quick question.
Yes.
Well, what happens then if the precincts are dramatically changed and these people are elected then? I guess they just are vacated then?
The boundaries their positions will remain in place throughout their.
Their term.
Yeah.
Okay, I get what you're saying. And when you say implement, are you saying then mid-year we're going to do that, or you think for the next election?
After the May 2nd election will begin.
Okay.
Those updates, yeah.
All right, perfect. Thank you. That's all my questions. I'm sorry.
No? Fine. Any other questions? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I will move to approve the personnel agenda and acknowledge reluctantly the resignation of Mr. Robert Wells, who took a job as a bailiff in Recorder County. Please, if there's a second. Second. Thank you. Any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I have one walk-on item here that I've asked to be put on. I'm going to kind of tee this up. Mark, I'm going to ask you to assist me here. I know, Tony, you can hear me. You can unmute yourself if you want to add anything, but our office received, and Brent Lawler, I know, is here too, and was received petitions for a recall of the mayor of Newburgh Heights. At the time Mr. Lawler got it, he reached out to the director, the deputy director, who reached out to our assistant prosecutor, Mr. Musson, about the nature of this recall. And Mr. Musson, having said that, what was your conclusion and what steps were taken then before you advised the director, deputy director, and manager Lawler of what steps to take?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we received a copy of the petition sometime in mid-December, I think the 17th of December. And looking at the face of them, there was a question whether or not this was something that the petitioners of the village had a right to undertake under its governing statutes. The village of Newburgh Heights is a non-chartered statutory village. So they follow the general plan of government that's provided for in the revised code. And in that, it was our understanding that in that governing law, there is no right to recall elected officials for a village in Ohio. We reached out to the law director for Newburgh Heights. He gave us a legal opinion confirming that they are a village, they do not have a charter, and laying out the legal reasoning for why that they cannot hold a recall election. We then notified the.
Excuse me, so a couple things. That's typically what the board does, is reaches out to the law director and have them interpret these matters.
Correct.
You then reviewed that interpretation, correct?
Correct.
And you concurred with it?
Correct.
Is
I
that
agree.
okay.
Yes, there's a firm legal precedent that villages do not have that authority unless they adopt a charter.
And then you advised the director and deputy director that was the case?
Correct.
And Mr. Lawler?
Correct.
Okay.
In the meantime, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
In the meantime, we did receive a complaint from the subject of the recall petition alleging defects with certain signatures.
And let me just, so once you came to the conclusion, the director, deputy director, that they didn't have any authority for the recall, they were advised of that, correct?
Correct.
You sent them a letter.
Correct. I sent the letter to the petitioner stating, thank you for the submittal, but we don't recognize this.
In the meantime, the subject of the recall filed a complaint with Mr. Lawler,
Correct.
request. And you consulted with Mr. Lawler, the director, deputy director on that.
Correct.
And what conclusion did you come and recommend to those individuals?
The complaint was seeking an investigation into election falsification because on petition forms and under the statutes you're required to sign as a circulator or as a petitioner under threat of election prosecution for election falsification. In reviewing the complaint, since the petition was void, it was a nullity, there cannot be election falsification because those signatures would not be checked or validated. And so.
And they were allegations of signatures.
Correct.
And what our agency has done in the past, if someone signs and puts the wrong address down, we just, and I'm speaking from experience, we just don't count the signature on the petition.
Correct.
We generally don't conduct investigations of why the address is wrong typically. Okay.
Correct. Either the signer of the petition will be stricken or not counted towards the total requirement for making it to the ballot, or if the circular statement with other defects might throw out the part petition that's at issue.
No, and so that was the advice you gave the director. The deputy director, I know, was shared with Mr. Lawler, and I saw an email chain. Mr. Lawler advised, correct, the subject of the complaint, Mr. Lawler, that there would be no investigation, correct? Right. So having seen that, though, I think it's proper for this board to actually have this discussion we're having. I'm going to make a motion not to investigate the complaint by the mayor of Newburgh Heights because of the reasons set forth. I'd ask you to issue a letter to him on our behalf, setting forth, that we had this matter in advisement and concluded. Anyways, I'm going to make the motion. I don't know what the vote's going to be, that there won't be an investigation. So, I mean, there'll be no investigations for the reasons set forth by Mr. Fuss.
And if I could just add, there was, and it's the board's prerogative if they want to investigate it. There's nothing compelling the board to investigate it, but you definitely have the discretion. And there was no intent to take that away from the board to pursue that lead. We were acting quickly based on timelines that were involved with whether or not we were going to move forward with verifying the signatures, presenting that as a petition. So I just want to make that clear that we weren't making a decision on behalf of the board, and we weren't substituting our judgment for the board.
And to the complainant's, benefit, he should have this matter brought in front of the board and discussion about it. And that's why I thought, and I'm going to, nevertheless, based on what I've heard, I'm going to make a motion not to investigate this matter as he's requested in his complaint.
I'll second.
Okay.
I appreciate you coming back because I thought it was necessary and important for us to have this discussion because there was just sort of summarily, the board will not, there's no need for the board to look at it. And obviously we want to make sure that we understand why. And so I do appreciate you guys with the follow-up and the opinion that you provided to us, the rationale and all of the logistics about the responses and the advice you were giving to the administration on the issue. It just seems to me, at your opinion in our view is that at a threshold level, there's no actionable claim because the signatures are ab initio, not valid. There's no charter. There's no legal basis for making the claims really actionable. Is that fair?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. I'd be supportive of the motion, but I appreciate for us having the distinction and the comments on the record so that we have transparency around the issue.
Right.
Thank you.
That was purely staff
Staff
recommendation, and then
I understand. Thank you for the follow-up.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Pilati, is there anything you wanted to add?
No, I think that's good. I think Mark sending that letter gives a more official position on the matter. Brent had already given a simple email on it, but I think this will bring additional clarity, conclusion to the matter.
Well, and let me add, Mr. Lawler was simply responding to an email he received from the complaint, and he gave what was the appropriate answer, but we needed to come from the board too. So, any other question or comment? All right, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. I don't believe we have any other agenda items, correct, Mr. Johnny? Okay. Is there anything, Mr. Perlotti, you would like to discuss at this new business? Or Mr. Campbell?
No, I think it's, as far as new business, we are already starting to plan for the May election. We start doing that months in advance and have created a task calendar and are working with them to start to get things in place. We know it'll be a better attended election, being a gubernatorial primary, and we're going to start early and get it right.
Terrific. Thank you. Anything else to add?
Yeah, I just would, Mr. Chair, just wanted to, just note that we had a really, Jeff, the chair and I participated in a call with the Department of Justice yesterday with Tony Calgar and Lottie and staff around just the usual notice that we apparently get every 5 years regarding, some of it's triggered by the Census Bureau. I believe it's actually triggered by the Census Bureau for those jurisdictions such as our county that have been addressing Spanish-speaking voters and have bilingual programs and that kind of thing. It was just a great call. Not to give the whole history of our commitment to Spanish-speaking voters as an agency, but what originated back in 2010 with the agreed upon consent decree, and then our implementation of bilingual training and ballots, and from start to finish registration of voting, the interpreter services that we provide, our staffer, bilingual staffing, and our work at the polls with bilingual workers. And there's a section 203 of the Voting Rights Act. And just, we talked a little bit about what we've been doing and our commitment as an agency to continue to support the Spanish-speaking voters in the county. And it was just a really kind of neat call with the Department of Justice. We work with them periodically anyways to make sure that we have, an accurate count of voters with Hispanic surnames and the requisite precincts and so forth. It was just really kind of a neat collaboration. We sort of expressed our commitment as an agency to continue our very robust program, and they seem to be very receptive to the collaboration and appreciative of it. So I just thought we would just report out that Jeff and I participated on that call with staff, and it was a really good call. So, and a good collaboration. So
terrific. Thank you. Sure. Any questions? Hearing none. Any other new business for the board?
No, I'll just mention the fact that we are awaiting the petition to control and regulate cannabis. They have initially, the group came up 13,000 signatures short, and they have until this Thursday to submit additional signatures. So we're anticipating receiving some signatures here.
Sure. At the board. Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other question or comment? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to make a motion to go into executive session, but before we do that, we have at least one public comment. A thoughtful one from Mr. Jonathan Platt. Is Mr. Platt here? Good morning, Mr. Platt.
Good morning.
You have 5 minutes, sir, to address the board, and thank you for coming down.
All right, I'll try and make it in 4. Thank you. The English legal philosopher H.L.A. Hart, in his work, The Concept of Law, cited uncertainty as one of the most serious defects possible in the legal system. Uncertainty leaves citizens wondering which actions are allowed and which are prohibited. A desire to avoid a risk of sanction chills even legal actions. As our U.S. Supreme Court wrote in a different context, liberty finds no refuge in a jurisprudence of doubt. I come before you today to address the uncertainty arising from recent changes in Ohio elections laws and to urge the board to do what it can to provide clarity. Last Friday, I sent to Director Perlotti, on behalf of myself and 4 other members of the Ohio Voter Rights Coalition Board of Elections team for the county, a letter raising issues about recent changes in HB 110 and HB 272. These changes regard the use of drop boxes and limitations on interactions between election officials and non-governmental organizations and persons. I appended to my request for time today a copy of the letter along with the text of my remarks to put them on the record. I want to thank Director Perlotti for his emailed response to the letter only hours after it was sent, In his response, he said that he expected the Secretary of State to issue a directive concerning the use of drop boxes. He further indicated that the board will engage in discussions with county prosecutors on items that were not addressed in Attorney General Yost's opinion issued last week concerning interactions involving elections officials. As I stated in my cover email, I think there are considerable issues that are left unaddressed in the Attorney General's opinion. Let me say also that I encountered on my way in here for the first time the advisory issued by Secretary of State LaRose, following up from that opinion from the Attorney General. And I don't know if there's any gloss that comes on that might change the Attorney General's opinion. However, we would welcome the opportunity to consult with you in the future, perhaps after your initial discussion with county prosecutors, to bring forward any specific issues we still might think need further clarification. Again, I appreciate the board's efforts in these critical times, fighting back against the uncertainty that curtails liberty. As John Wesley said in a 1799 sermon, do good as we have time and opportunity to do good in every possible kind and in every possible degree to all. On the issues I raised today, this is the time that you, specifically you all up here, have the opportunity to do good by reducing uncertainty where you can, especially in this area of critical purpose, the conduct of our elections, serving the cause of democracy and the service of society as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Platt. I appreciate your thoughtful comments. And as Director Pilati pointed out, and I'm glad you brought this matter up, we're going to be talking to Mr. Musson after he has a chance to review that. And if there are collaborative efforts that come up from your organizations or others in the community, as well as our staff, we'll be looking at that to make sure that they're consistent with the opinion and with our opinion we get from our prosecutor, or whether we can do that or not. And so it's a work in progress.
Right.
And as each initiative comes about, we'll take a look at that and see if we can engage in it. And I think there's a willingness on my part. I don't speak for all of them, but I think that's the case, that we want to be able as collaborative as we can be within the boundaries of that opinion.
As far as discussions with the prosecutor, is that going to be something that there will be notice of, or it will be made public, whatever opinions come out of it?
Yeah, well, I don't know what, Mark, why don't you answer it? Usually it's confidential.
Discussions with the counsel for the board is attorney-client privilege, so it's not something that we would typically do in a meeting. It probably would be in writing, and then individually discuss with the board members.
Right. So that's how. So the way I see this approach is as initiatives come up from your organizations or others, we'll take a look at each one individually and make sure that we're operating consistently with the opinion and with the law, with the hope to be engaged in that process with, fair, accurate, transparent elections, getting as many people to vote as possible. That's what we all want to encourage.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for coming and for your comment. I mean, we are obligated under the advisory and the direction from the Secretary of State to review the opinion and then to discuss it with you. I mean, so it just seems to me, I have some questions about certain provisions around the collaboration, and I think the opinion does try to distinguish between acting in our individual capacity versus acting in our board capacity, but that can be kind of nuanced. So there would be some questions I would have around certainly around the opinion in that regard. And then certainly, the opinion is not intended to limit our First Amendment rights to voice opinions or, with or without or in conjunction with other organizations. But that could be a fine line. And I want to make sure that as we, or I can only speak for myself, as I engage in my First Amendment right to speak to issues about voting and concerns that I have in my individual capacity, that I'm not crossing any fine line, given what is the expectation of the Secretary of State, and while preserving my right to my First Amendment right. So those are some just initial comments I have and questions around clarity. I was involved in the Dropbox litigation. I gave testimony in that in my individual capacity. My concerns around our single Dropbox in our parking lot. So, there are issues around that may come up in the future that, each of us may have some concern about. that impact our, we're informed by our board experience, but not actually acting in a board capacity. Obviously, one of us doesn't represent the whole agency, but again, those issues are of concern to me, given what I'm passionate about. So I will be wanting to have some conversations for clarity to make sure I don't run afoul of what is expected, and asking for additional clarity where I think there's some lacking. So I wanted to thank the gentleman absolutely for bringing that to our attention and noting some things that actually we had already kind of thought about. Thank you. Thanks.
Any other comment? Mark, we'll tee that up for February when we meet again.
Sure.
I'll probably give you plenty of time to look at it.
Sure.
And we'll talk. Thank you. Okay. Anything else? No other public comment? All right. Nothing else to add for new business. In that case, I will move to go into executive session just to talk about an employment matter. If there's a second. Second. Thank you. Board Member Stickett.
Yes.
Member Wanda Laus. Yes. Hastings is yes. Member.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. We're going to break to do that, and then we'll come out and we'll be adjourning then after we come out. We know other business. You don't need do I go in? No.
I wish when we would have worded those.
What's that? It's okay. I just see why I see. I get it. I mean, you're revising purposely. Happy New Year. Thank you.
And congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Accolades out there.
That is so
I was
good.
just like, wow. I know a star.
I know, you're so kind.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you. I guess let's take a ticket. I'm packing up with Board of Elections. I'm just not on, fairly. No, okay. Okay. Okay, bye.
when we come back in.
They're kind of makes sense, so it's every year. Yeah, now let me read his email, kind of extensive, there's a lot.
And I think it's probably something that maybe.
Yeah, they might know.
Yeah, just a little bit. That's my response.
Maybe they'll change it, wherever. Brand new baby year.
Right.
I'll see you guys.
All right, take care.
I'll be back in touch.
All right, thank you. Hi, Steve, how are you?
Good afternoon. Happy New Year.
How's Gary doing?
She is still recovering.
Oh my gosh.
I think today she was supposed to have another follow-up with her surgeon.
Okay.
And hopefully there's more improvement. Last time I talked to her about it, she was still in pain and on crutches.
Oh,
She was worried they'd have to go in and do something else. So she's supposed to
Right.
find out today.
been a nice little period of time.
Yeah, she started doing Zoom demos.
Oh, okay.
But she can only sit for so long before she has to get up now. Cramps up.
All right.
Never had a hip surgery before, so I don't know. I never had hip surgery before, so I don't know. I don't know what's involved. I'm sure it gets more sitting there for long periods of time. So I'm trying to get
People are happy that they because all their friends are getting old like me.
Oh, maybe that's what it is.
yeah.
Hanging out these countries like.
Alrighty. Yeah, next month, yes.
Yeah. I'm down.
Oh, wow. Oh, boy.
All right, take care.
Right here. To me it is. And I swear. I did this. Yeah, I did too, but it's affecting. Rises to the top of the second floor, and then I'm on the floor. So I was sweating on my, but it was cool. I love downstairs, so I turned it up a bit. I hate for it to, it takes too long for me to warm up. If I get it in, and it's cold, but because I have problems with the sun and sunshine. My doctor recommends that I keep that other side cool, because then that way I'll shovel up and go to sleep versus being hot. It's not working. Yeah, it's not work. It's not working.
Well, yeah, I really believe that's what I do too. Keeping, you know, units in their house.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I think it's just the heat, you know, like crazy.
Even though I shut the register.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Turner, I want you to learn to read my lips when I have my mask on. Right.
That's funny.
He is not gonna work.
Mary, I'm gonna do better now. Okay.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay, we're back in session. I will move to come out of executive session. If there's a second.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Sticken.
Yes.
Mr. Wanalowski. Yes. Hastings, yes. Ms. Steinich.
Yes.
Yes, okay, I will move to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks very much.
Yours. I think. Oh, no.
No, those are yours.
Hi, Mr. Delgado, how are you?
Everything okay then?
Yeah, everything's good.
Petition?
Yeah.
Well, I don't, yeah.
Great meeting. Great test.